Raceway, 90 kilometres from the Russian capital, plays host to the FIA World Touring Car Championship for the first time. This new facility, opened only in 2012, will produce close racing on its tight and twisty layout. And under bright sunny skies, the grid is already absolutely awash with humanity. The paddock has been packed. Look at the grandstands on top of the pit stands there, absolutely alive with humanity. And the place is jammed with fans. Well, beautiful conditions overhead at Moscow Raceway at the moment after a warm and sunny morning. You can see that reflected in the track temperature after overnight rain. It's now plus 40 and climbing, but look above as we ride down towards the front of the grid with Ivan Muller, and you can see dark clouds overhead. When the man who's 49 points in the lead of the championship wants rain, the rest of us want dry. Harry Folkard, are we going to get dry and a race, or are we going to get rain and Ivan marching away?
Well, it's a good question, but the last 2 days it's been very similar weather till later on, and then there's been massive thunderstorms, so it's anyone's guess really. The clouds don't seem as vicious as they were yesterday, but they can pretty quickly turn up and spoil Ivan Muller's fun, I would imagine.
Yeah, the weather arrived pretty rapidly yesterday. Sky's definitely not as grey or leaden as it was yesterday. Much more white cloud. Not so many thunderheads visible in the 180 degrees that we can see from the top of the grandstand. You see Marcello Lotti down there with some of the Russian dignitaries. And Ivan Muller, the man, on pole position. Big weekend for Lukoil, his sponsor, of course, the Russian state oil conglomerate. And their man on pole position. And, of course, also fastest this morning with James Thompson in the morning warm-up. But qualifying yesterday, showers started to sprinkle just at the beginning of the Q2 lap. Ivan managed to get out first and get a lap in before conditions deteriorated for everyone else.
Yeah, he did a great job yesterday in qualifying. He managed to get just behind Tom, his teammate. He used him as a reference. You could see kind of, he let Tom pull away, built a gap, and then used that gap to reference exactly how much grip there was. And a fantastic lap, put him on pole position.
And then mysteriously on his in-lap, seemed incapable of doing more than 30 miles an hour because the conditions were so dreadful, even though everybody else was still trying to qualify. That seemed to have escaped the stewards. Tom Coronel could have, should have been on pole. He definitely had the car under him on Saturday to take pole, but the rain got in the way. It was only a sprinkling, but it was enough. Rob Huff, third on the grid. That's great stuff. And Norbert Nicolas and Gabriele Tarquini, fourth and fifth in their Hondas. No engine change, I don't think, after Gabriele Tarquini's problems this morning, or problems with the car after the crash. And behind him, James Thompson in sixth place on the grid or alongside, and that's really good. Best qualifying performance of the season for the Lada, and in the top six you can expect Tomo to get his elbows out and try and claw his way forward. And he was telling us after qualifying yesterday, most of the rest of the field will go quicker in qualifying and drop back with their race pace. Not so for the Lada. It's got what it's got, and he has gone as fast as he could.
Yeah, and what a place to perform as well, with all the dignitaries and sponsors around. You know, it's a perfect opportunity for them to do a good job.
So on to the start-finish line. Good exit from the last corner up to fourth gear as we're coming up to the first corner. Going to leave it in fourth gear, dab on the brakes, turn it in. A little bit nervous on the turn-in. Bit of oversteer, bit of understeer, down to third for turn two. Big oversteer through turn two, caught it. Back to the left-hand side, tricky right-hander coming up. And brake. We're quite loose on the rear end this morning, as we can see already. Tight right-hander, get it into the apex on the power. Bit of wheel spin, nothing too dramatic. Leave it in second. You can see fighting the car quite a lot. Very slippery circuit, just clip the tyre apex there. And onto the back straight, as we call it, up to fifth, flat through the chicane. Got a Chevrolet in front, going to pop the lights on, hopefully it'll get out of the way. Down to fourth, very nervous on turning there, yeah. Out the way they go, down to third gear. Tight into the left-hand side on the power, back to the right. Bit of understeer, bit of oversteer. Car's moving around well this morning. Track's very green, brakes are working well, no lockups there. Get on the power, just squeezing it. Technical section here, brake down to third, roll it in as long as possible before picking up the power. Need a good exit from this one, onto the back straight. All about top speed down the back straight here. Bit of of mud on the exit there. Just run over the curb. Not a bad lap, not a great lap. We're about a second and a half so far off our qualifying pace. I can see that from the dashboard, and up to 6th gear. As I say, very slippery this morning, hard on the brakes from 6th down to 2nd. Tight left-hander onto the start-finish line. Warming the tyres up the whole time. Very fresh out here. Back over to you guys.
A great view talked through by Rob Huff on board, and you could see Harry Volkart, how slippery the circuit was. We talked about it in morning warm-up. We went out yesterday with Bruno Correa in the Mercedes AMG safety car, and in the rain, that car had more, a road car had more grip than the racing car did on slicks on the dry track. That looked horrendous.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. Obviously, the race cars in the dry are going a fair amount faster, but it's fair to say the track is very, very green, and you can see the input that Rob's putting into the steering wheel, what he's doing with his feet as well. You can just see he's trying to fight the car a little bit, and that is something we've seen all weekend because of the rain. There's been a lot of mistakes, and you know, it has been very difficult. The drivers are driving on a knife edge, and it's going to be difficult to make sure that nobody makes any mistakes during the races.
In the bright afternoon sunshine. Looking here at Tom Chilton, one of the 2 Lucas Aon Chevrolet drivers, starting grid position 12. Tom, on his first flying lap at corner 4 or 5, the tight right-hand hairpin, had a most enormous slide, full lock-stocks catch, right in front of Alex McDowell, actually, bizarrely, and ruined both their qualifying laps. Unfortunately, they're a little further down the grid than they would like to be. And so too James Nash, 3rd in the overall point standings, leads the Yokohama Trophy as well. You know, feels he's not having a good season, but you look at it on paper and you go, in what way is he not having a good season? He's learning a different car from last year's Ford, learning to work with Bamboo, but they are having a really strong run. Yeah,
James is driving really, really well. I think he's sometimes a little bit frustrated. He just hasn't quite got the car exactly where he wants it, but he's doing a fantastic job, and you know, keeping his head in the right place, and you know, doing a really good job. It's got to be said.
Well, another man who's having a really good season, and looks like it was his evil twin that drove last year in that BMW compared to this year's version of Mehdi Benani. The 2013 Moroccan driver has really clicked. Something has dropped into mesh with his relationship with the BMW, and suddenly he can race it. He was on the podium in Hungary, and he's going to start on pole position for race 2 with this guy, Charles Eng, who has had the similar eureka moment yesterday, just got a blinding qualifying lap out of the car, and he will start alongside on the front row of the grid in race 2. Now, for both of those guys, a great opportunity to become yet another first-time winner, like Michel Nukia has, like James Nash has already this season. So we've seen a lot of variety in our winners, even though Ivar Muller's racking up all the points.
Yeah, and with Benani, he's now got the experience and the confidence to know that he can race at the front with these guys. He knows he can go wheel to wheel with some of the best guys in the world. With Charles, I think, you know, with all due respect, this is his first time this far up the grid. It'll be difficult. I would expect to see him drop back, but yeah. Benani has got real potential to fight up there, I think.
Well, here's another first-time winner this season. You know, we talked about the fact that Ivar Muller's getting this increasing championship lead, and that is absolutely irrefutable fact. And part of the reason is that the wins have been sort of scattergunned across half the rest of the field. You know, there's not so much of a factory domination of the championship anymore, and that has levelled out the playing field. I mean, you know, it would be yet another classic World Touring Car Championship fairy tale if somehow Captain Jack Sparrow here could end up winning a race for Lada in Russia. I mean, what a time for a fairy tale ending. You know, I don't want to put any kind of pressure on him, and he's certainly not expecting it. But what he is, he's delighted to have qualified in the top half dozen, somewhere where you can actually have a race.
And fastest in morning warm-up this morning, and you know, like we said earlier, that car when we talked to James yesterday, that's on the edge. That's pretty much running at full capacity all the time. So where the other guys will slow down slightly on the race pace from their qualifying pace, he's on the money. He's going to be doing the laps that he was doing in qualifying all race long.
And in fact, was he not faster in morning warm-up than he was in qualifying as well? So.
I think so. It was within a tenth, I think, but.
Well, beside him, Tarquini, in front of him, Norbert Mikulits. In the end, what looked like was going to be a really horrendous qualifying session for Honda. Tarquini and Mikulits finally got a lap in, and Rob Huff third on the grid. In the press conference afterwards, Fabio Ravioli, the FIA media delegate, said, you know, how do you feel about that? And he said, third on the grid? Are you kidding? I'll take that. Absolutely. That's a really... And it seems that the Seats and the BMWs are much more on a par here with the... And indeed the Lada, much more on a par here with the Chevrolet. And that's that twisty second sector. Really, really works the tyres hard, like Slovakia. And Tom Coronel, apart from the end of qualifying 2, was the man that everybody was looking to set the pole lap. He really should have been on pole, and if there hadn't been that sprinkling of rain, I pretty much guarantee he would have been. If Muller, you know, like Tarquini, can always find a lap somewhere, but he was 3/10 off, and that seemed like a bit too far. I think he got out in plenty, you know, he got out at the front of the queue, allowed Tom Chilton to lead off, but he got the lap in, and as everybody behind him came across the line, the conditions were just dropping off. So it is Ivan who starts it. Green flag waves at the Moscow Raceway. For the first time, the FIA World Touring Car Championship is in town. We're 90 kilometers as the crow flies, or approximately 4 hours driving from the center of the city as the cars go around on the warm-up. Let's hear from Rob Huff, third on the grid.
Just giving the old seatbelts final tighten and get nice and comfy in the car. So I'm not strangling myself. Looks like it's going to be a pretty slow lap round to the grid. Got to be happy with third place on the grid. Always difficult to know what's going to happen at the start. Still very slippery out here after this morning. Need the safety car to go a little bit faster, would be nice. I'm sure Ivan's saying exactly the same, and Tommy. But, been given the information that Ivan has got brand new front tyres and used rears. Tommy's got 4 brand new tyres. I'm not going to tell you what I've got, but we'll leave that as a surprise. I believe Michelis has also got a brand new front set of tyres as well. Going to be a tough race for sure. Very warm out here, very hot, front wheel drives. I think going to struggle. It's so slippery out here, it's absolutely incredible. You can't afford to make a mistake. Like I say, I need this leading car to go a bit faster, struggling to get the right amount of heat into the brakes and the tyres. Ivan's slowing right down, trying to get a bit of a run. Bit of a run into the chicane, the hairpin here, down hard on the brakes, turn it in. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens at the start of this one. As always, WTCC is going to be a nice bit of fireworks for everyone at home. We'll see how we get on.
Ivan Muller pacing the field towards the first corner. Rob Huff told you all about the problems that the drivers are going to face here, what they're expecting. And here on board with Gabriele Tarquini, shunt in the drive line. They've all tried to keep some heat in their tyres as we get ready for the start of round 11 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship. Rolling start for the first ever race here at the Moscow Raceway. And Tom Coronel will be desperate to get on with this. If he can get in front of Muller, he has a chance. If he has to follow, overtaking may be more difficult. They've got to follow through their grid marks. There's a couple of drivers out of line, Mark Basseng, and away we go. Ivan Muller with the lead down into the first corner. Tommy's going to have to go around the outside. There's contact between them. Up to third, Mikulec. Fourth is Huff. Fifth is Thompson. Carnage behind. And James Thompson in fifth position. Freddie Bart, Charles Eng's car is wrecked. He's a front row starter for race 2. Daryl Young going very slowly as well. A number of the BMWs got tangled up. Charles Eng has got to drive that wreckage round to the pits and allow his team to fix it. He's got to go now. Meanwhile, Thiago's come through, and I'm sure he's got a good view of that shunt. On board with Tarquini, watching Thompson. Good start from the Lada driver.
that looked like Charles N got turned around by someone, to be honest. I just saw him arriving sideways in the back of the shot there, and he's obviously been fully tangled up by everybody who was coming in from behind him.
Well, he had Nash, Chilton, O'Young, Freddie Bart behind him. Nash and Chilton have got through. O'Young didn't, notably. Freddie Bart didn't either. Looks like a 12-1 won't go sort of a thing. Safety car is in pit road. Are we going to see it? We've not seen the tangle at the first corner at the moment. To the second of our hairpin corners now. This is really heavy braking here. It feels like a mountain hairpin. You turn sharp left up the hill. Ivan Muller leading from Tom Coronel. Norman Mikulits in third position. Ooh, right up behind the liquid moly car of Franz Engsler. This is on board with Michał Kozłowski. And that is the battle for 17th place. Muller leading. Yellow flags out at the first corner. No sign yet of the need for a safety car. Huff looking down the inside of Mikulits. No. Was that attacking Mikulits or defending from Thompson? Not quite sure.
I think it was an attack on Mikulits, but it just wasn't quite ready.
Okay, slow down. Safety car coming out. They are going to have to sweep up the debris at the first turn. Huff will tuck back in behind the Zengo Motorsport car of Mikulits, and further back, everybody else tucking back into line as well. Proceedings have been suspended for the moment, so we could add to our 12-lap race distance with another couple of laps behind the safety car. That seems very likely. In fact, it's now already up to lap 2 of 13. At the moment the safety car is scrambled. We add 1 lap. We've got the option to add up to 2. Well, fairly clean from the lead group, but in the midfield, Harry, as is so often the case, it was carnage. We lost Freddie Bart, Charles Eng, Nikolai Karamshev, who was last on the grid, and Daryl O'Young as well. So somewhere in there, those cars went AWOL. On the right-hand side of the digger, you can see Charles Eng's car, and although the nose has come off it, there is Nikolai Karamshev and Daryl O'Young making it back to the pits. And this is vital, because there is no time between the races to fix the car.
No, and both of these guys have got damage on their front left, and you can see on Freddie Bart's car, he's got damage on his right rear corner. So to me, that says one of them has managed to
on the front. Let's have a look. Let's see. Watch the yellow and the blue in the middle of Daryl O'Young and Freddie Bart. And see who gets sideways. Look into the back. Can't really see from there. That was the contact with Muller.
Charles Eng locks up. You see Charles Eng will lose it on the exit, on the turn in there.
Who got spun? Oh, Freddie Bart on the inside, clattered into Charles Eng, and then climbed over the top. Stefano D'Aste somehow missed all that, as did Engster. Kozłowski. You saw the Seat get clattered in the back. That was Karamshev.
Yeah, he was a total innocent bystander, obviously just trying to avoid the crash.
Wow, Kozłowski is the Mark Martin camera of the weekend here, and there he got clipped by Karamshev. On board with the Nani, no contact from his nose. And that's good, he's the pole man for race 2, so he survived that. That's good for him, bad for Charles Eng. And the whole point is, I mean, you know, I don't care how broken it is, if the engine runs and he's got gears, Charles Eng had got to try and drive that back to the pits.
Yeah, he needed to.
Same with Freddie Bart, because now their weekend is over.
Yeah, he had to try and make that thing move. I mean, we can't tell by sitting here what the actual damage is, but it looks like he's lost a wheel or certainly broken an upright or something. But
well, let's hear from Rob Huff. He's down there in 4th place.
Difficult start to the race there, lost a place to Norby. We tried something a little bit new and didn't quite work for us. Fortunately, we were in the limiter and the guys around me were just a little bit quicker. So, yeah, shame, but that might change after the race, because I'm pretty sure after this morning's work with our limiter, that our limiter is at 90k, which is the maximum we're allowed on a rolling start. So we'll have to have a little look. Might be our calculation error, and it might be others. But yeah, difficult start. Obviously, I want that place back from Norby. I know the car I've got underneath me is really good and working well, and I think Tommy's going to be putting Ivan under quite a lot of pressure. Following the safety car round, just trying to keep everything nice and warm. The weaving is purely and simply just to keep the tyres nice and warm, rather nice and clean, sorry. And the heavy braking we do is what keeps the heat in the tyres. So yeah, all good, and we'll have to see what happens and how the race unfolds, but feeling good. Over to you guys.
Thank you, Rob. And Harry, you can hear there, he's not keeping a constant throttle, he's accelerating braking,
yeah.
and that's to build heat in the brakes, which transmits itself through the wheels to keep heat in the tyres.
Yeah, because it's a double, it's a double whammy, because obviously you're braking and accelerating, which is using the tyre to generate traction on the track. So that itself puts more tyre temperature in. And as you say, Martin, the temperature that you're generating in the brake actually translates into the wheel and then into the carcass of the tyre. So you're not just heating up the carcass of the tyre.
Classic broken front steering arm from Nikolai Karamishev. Watch the Russian drive. He's the last car in your shot with the red, white and blue of the Russian Federation. And completely innocent party here. He's looking for a way through as there's carnage. Okay. And just clips the car of Kovslowski on the right there as he comes around. He clips Freddie Bart. Nothing he could do about that.
That looked like Das stays in the back of Bart. Bart then collects Charles Eng, and then obviously Charles Eng gets fired off to the outside, and Bart then runs up the side. As you see Bart's car jump up here as he goes over the front wheel. I mean, it's fair to say I think Charles Eng's car's probably had it. I don't think that was coming back to the pit lane.
No, I'm sure he will have tried. I mean, he doesn't need me to tell him that he needs to get it back to the pit lane, but with the radiator hanging off and everything Christmas crackered, then I'm afraid it does look a bit like that was never going anywhere. Nikolai Karamishev, hats off, got that wreckage back. So that was good for him. Darrell Young's car also being fixed, and it's vital to fix it during the race because you have only 15 minutes of repair time between the races on which to work on it, and that's not enough to fix major damage. So this 25-minute race adds to that, and then you've got like a 40-minute period to try and replace corners, and that makes life much more doable.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at the state of some of these cars, but that definitely wasn't coming back. You can see the angle of both those front wheels, and the radiator. It's a fairly substantial job to sort all that out.
Right, now then, red flag. Now that will be for one of two reasons: an injury that needs attending, and I don't think that is the case, or damage to the barriers. Now, again, I don't think that's the case. So,
can't see any damage.
What are we looking at? A reason for a red flag? Well, I'm hoping to hear from race control. Nothing coming up on our timing screen.
I'm looking at the commentary box here and I can't see anything down the end.
No. Okay, I'm hearing a garbled message. Still no indication that something is not working, and so that's why we've got a red flag. I'm afraid that's all we're being told. So the third possibility is a technical issue with the rescue vehicle, which apparently is what we have. The rescue vehicle, and the irony here won't be lost on the audience, needs rescuing.
It's actually
which is why Charles Eng's car is being pulled away by hand.
And where that rescue vehicle sat is right in the runoff area where people have been running wide all weekend, so there's no way they can obviously restart the race with that sat there.
Cars now come to the grid, line up in their race formation in grid spots, and there is our race director making sure that everybody lines up where they should go. We very seldom have a red flag in a World Touring Car race, so it's not a common practice. Drivers should know. I mean, they are World Championship drivers. They kind of understand this, and the teams will be telling them on the radio, follow in grid formation and get ready to restart. So, it would seem like the perfect time to take a quick commercial pause as everybody gets ready to flood out and try and keep those vital tyres warm. the grandstands. Cars on the grid, red flag is out at Moscow Raceway, round 11 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship because of mechanical problems with the rescue vehicles down at turn 1. Look at the grandstand, really busy, and that's despite huge numbers of people on top of the pit lane buildings and watching on the hillsides and down in the paddock as well, because we've got 3 different Russian touring car championships here as well. Let's get down and hear from Daryl O'Young in the pits.
We are in the pit lane with Daryl O'Young, one of the few drivers to make contact in that first lap, Daryl, and make it back to the pits. Can you describe what happened?
I don't even know really what happened. I was just going through the corner. There was cars spinning in front, and all of a sudden I think it was Charles, I'm not sure if it was Charles, he just pulled in front of me. I think he pulled to the right, and I was just driving along and I hit him. So when you start in the mid-pack, it's a lottery, and I keep losing the lottery.
In terms of the damage to the car, the guys look like they're working pretty hard. What was the problems?
Just the left front contacted the car spinning in front. So there was nowhere to go. I had cars right, left of me.
I guess this red flag sort of helps you because you can have a chance to now check the car over before race 2.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're going to get some extra time here to fix the car. We can only look to race 2 now. I'm not sure what the situation now is with red flag. I have to find out from the team what the situation, if they're starting the whole race over again or not. But, you know, hopefully they do. If not, then we're just going to have to prep the car for the race. Yeah.
Thanks, Daryl.
Thanks.
Well, of course, he can rejoin if the car is fixed. He didn't get outside assistance, so it would be no different from any other fixing in the pit steel. Daryl there with the yellow highlights right in the middle. You saw diving into the middle of the shot. And it's on the inside. All the BMWs basically tucked up on the inside line, all making contact with each other, Harry.
Yeah, watch Daste on the inside there. You can see him, he's in the back of Bart. Bart's locking up. And then that's Bart getting into the back of Eng. And then that's right all starts.
I'm not sure that Charles Eng was having a massive lock-up to start with. Yeah.
Daste is in the back of Bart.
And Engsler was in the back of Daste, and Bart into the back of Eng as well. Yeah, there was too many cars on the inside line not stopping. And again, the oil on the outside line, so there's Engsler. Do you know what? I don't think Daste got into anybody until they were actually facing, or not facing backwards, but going dead slow. Daste was on the throttle there, so a little puff of black smoke as he hit the gas. We saw the accident was moving away from the line.
It's so difficult in these situations because everybody in front of you checks up. You're all braking as hard as you can, and it's a split-second decision. So even if he did get into the back of it, obviously wasn't intentional. Didn't have that as the end result as his view, but just I'm pretty sure he was on his rear bumper on the way in. But everybody else on everybody else's rear bumper. But you know, if the car in front's left is braking a little bit too late, and then you're trying to slow him down and yourself, then it's a non-starter.
Well, there's Freddie Bart running back, and you saw Charles Eng behind the barriers as well. They're both A-OK. These cars are very strong in terms of protecting the driver, which is all you care about in the case of an accident. And this is replacing the left front corner on, is that Daryl's car or was that the Seat? I couldn't quite see the drive shaft or not. Whatever, both of them need a replacement. They're putting foam down to sort out the oil trail as well. Because if somebody goes off wide there, they don't want to hit a slick of oil to exacerbate things. Drivers being strapped back into the cars. So we're on lap 5 of 15, 4 completed. So in fact, we're not quite on lap 5 because they haven't started the 5th lap yet. Well, Ben Constangiris is down on the grid. He's caught up with Tom Chilton.
A strange situation down here on the grid with the drivers out of their cars during this red flag period. Tom, you were just watching the big screen behind you, watching the accident, and actually had a pretty good grandstand view of what was happening ahead. Any ideas?
Well, yeah, it was all happening in front of me. I got a great rolling start. I was on the outside, and I nearly got a full car length on Nash, but not quite. And I was looking in my mirror on my left as I was diving across, and then I looked forwards, and everyone's literally in front of me, all spinning, and all 4 of my wheels are locked up hard on the brakes. And I just managed to miss the accident which was happening in front of me, run wide and get back in front. But Yeah, it's obviously taken a very long time to clear, so we've had to use a red flag here. I got excited for a split second without thinking, oh, I've gone from 12th to 10th in a lap and I'm up the inside, but it's not a standing start, it'll be a safety car start, so I'll be back behind James, it'll be single file.
How does a driver, it's actually on the big screen behind you, how does a driver deal with an accident happening so close in such proximity?
You just got to try and avoid it, you know, you just don't want to be involved. Otherwise you have a bent car and then you don't finish the race. But that corner, it gets tighter, and because the barrier goes so close up towards the apex on the inside, you can't see through the corner till you're at the corner. So that's why I locked up my brakes, because I was the first person to really see it from where I was. Everyone behind, I think, was all crossed up as well.
In terms of those early laps, how did the car feel? You're looking to progress up through the field. Obviously, qualifying wasn't great for you.
Yeah, well, I was the fastest front-wheel drive car in Q1, and then I drove like a big girl in Q2, basically. So the rain came down, and I backed off about 0.2 of a second on each corner, and I didn't use any curbs because it started to rain. And on all the corners, that adds up to a total of 2 seconds, which is why I wasn't front row. Starting 12th, I'm now 10th. And I've set the car up so it's good at the end of the race. So at the beginning of the race, I was just sitting there, trying to stay out of trouble. And then hopefully the car will come towards me at the end of the race.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Well, Tom's absolutely right, of course. They won't do a standing start. It will be a rolling start from behind the safety car. And so he will be tucked up line astern. Little view there at the back of his car. He will line up behind James Nash and in front of Stefano D'Aste. Red flag remains out at the Moscow Raceway. We are within 10 minutes of restarting this 11th race in the FIA World Touring Car Championship. So fans can go and enjoy the sunshine for a few more minutes and then head back to a seat or a position trackside to watch the action. Martin Haven, Harry Volkard in the booth, Ben Constantiouris down in the pit lane, and now in fact basking in sunshine on the grid. And Harry still, fingers crossed, looking like it may remain dry for both these races, and that's really what we want to get good competitive action.
Yeah, firstly, we do want to see it stay dry so we can see these BMWs kind of come to the fore a bit, because as we know, when it rains, the BMWs just go backwards. So we need to keep it like that, but you know.
Well, let's get down to the grid, catch up with Gabriele Tarquini.
One of the men that had a difficult warm-up session this morning was Gabriele Tarquini. Both Hondas struggling with water pressure. You had 2 out laps to test the car. Is it feeling okay?
Yeah, at the moment everything seems to work correct. We had this problem since yesterday, and this seems fine.
In terms of the race start, how was it for you? It looked pretty busy.
Yeah, I was very fast on the start, but unfortunately I had a big hit from behind on the first corner. I recovered the car, but just behind me it was a big mess. Fortunately, I was a little bit on front.
In terms of the race pace of this car, it's been difficult to understand exactly where Honda is this weekend. What do you expect for the remaining 10 laps?
I think that it's better to finish this race. We are not in the best condition because we had a small problem with the engine cooling system, but also with setup. So we try to do our best and to score some points.
Thank you very much, Gabriele. It's worth noting that there is a new engine cooling at the front of the car.
Small problem also hitting the barriers on the final lap of the morning warm-up. I talked to him afterwards saying, you know, we just come live to you 2 corners beforehand, and then you went straight off and you went, oh, good, I keep the entertainment for you. Yeah, okay, right. No damage done. I mean, didn't even mark the paint, so it just rolled into the barrier at tiny speed.
I would like to know how they know that this race is going to start in 10 minutes when the dig is still exactly where it was before, just with more people rushing around it trying to pull it out, and it's obviously not going anywhere.
Well, Mirek's decided, that's why. Yeah, I think tractor will remain in its current position. Permanent yellow flag in turn 1. Right. Yikes. That means that one of the key overtaking opportunities at the end of the straight is going to have to be done at the end of the straight coming onto the start-finish rather than at the end of the start-finish straight itself. So, to be honest, turn 1-2 isn't going to be much of an overtaking opportunity anyway. It's the final turn that will see the heavy braking at the end of the long straight and the climb up the hill back to the pit. So there's a 250-metre elevation change between the highest point and the lowest point on this circuit. Again, we were talking to Bruno yesterday, safety car driver, and he was saying that he went out for a run and took his GPS watchy kind of thing with him to monitor it, and it said, yeah, there's 250-meter elevation change, and it does go up and down quite a lot more than you actually see from the TV cameras, which are by nature sort of elevated above ground level.
It does, but sorry, this is ridiculous. I can't start that race with that thing there. I mean,
well, I'm afraid they're going to, Harry.
It's right in the runoff. If anyone, I mean, these cars are strong, but they're not meant to be designed to hit tractors.
Well, let's hear now from Tom Coronel.
We are now at the very sharp end of the grid. Tom, you started in second position. You attacked hard, a little bit of contact with Ivan, but you stayed in second position. Any chance now to move up?
Well, we lost some laps because of the safety car, but it seems all right. It's nice and hot, and I could see Ivan had some difficulties in some corners where my car was more stable. So, no, there are some chances. The small contact was my steering wheel's a little bit bent, but everything felt fine. I don't know why he was doing it, but anyway. No, I mean, there are possibilities, so I think we will have some fun the last few laps.
Now, one of the possibilities for overtaking is into this first corner, but we're told that Tractor is going to stay there for the rest of the race.
Well, yes, but for me, I have to overtake somewhere in the midfield, not in the first corner, because the acceleration of the Chevy is very strong in the last corner. So for me, it doesn't bother me for overtaking. No problem.
Okay, so good luck for the win.
Yep, but we don't need luck, eh? We need money and sex.
Breakfast of Champions is all I'm saying. 5-minute board is being shown, and I have to say I'm not entirely sure I disagree wholeheartedly with Harry about having a race with a very, very solid object in the runoff area. I'm entirely comfortable with that, and I'm not entirely sure I'd be comfortable if I was the driver. Nevertheless, we are getting ready to go racing. Red flag remains out, and the final digger that moves is moving out of the area, the runoff area at turn 1 here at the Moscow Raceway. We're getting ready to go racing once more in round 11 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship. Charles Eng down there in pit road. You saw Ben Constantius right with him. I'm not sure whether Charles's car is even remotely recoverable. I think his chances of starting on the outside of the front row of the grid in race 2 have gone for a Burton in that first corner incident. And Stefano D'Aste and Freddie Bart remain under investigation by the stewards for that incident. Bart's car will take no further part in the proceedings either, and Charles Eng, it seems, an entirely innocent party in the, as always, snooker ball effect. If somebody hits somebody, it just kind of cannons on down the line, and the wave gets bigger, the shot gets bigger rather than less as you knock somebody into somebody else.
Yeah, I think that was a racing incident in the first corner. I'm sure there's absolutely no malice in it, but that looked to me like D'Aste kind of collected Bart, but not hard. It didn't even look like he hit him hard. It just, you know, maybe they both slightly overshot their braking point, and then that sent him into the back of Charles, and Charles was pretty much the innocent bystander along with Darrell Young.
Yeah, again, you know, if D'Aste did outbrake himself and ran into the back of Bart, and Bart's in a straight line or just starting to turn in, that's not so much of a problem. The further round the corner you are when you get hit, the more likely you are to get sideways. So it's not the guy who gets hit first, it's the last guy right at the front of the chain that gets hit, who's always the one who has the flamboyant spin. Not because they've got no driving ability or can't control the car, but because they're more sideways in the corner anyway. So engines have restarted, the grid is being cleared, the safety car will lead the field around. They will not go in 2x2 formation, they will go, I think, in crocodile formation, won't they? 1 by 1, rather than Noah leading them into the arc. It will be in single file formation, as you would expect to see on any European FIA rules safety car restart. It won't be a NASCAR or IndyCar restart. So we had completed 4 laps. 11 laps still to go here at Moscow Raceway. One of the shorter laps in the season. Safety car has gone. Ivan, that's your cue. Yes, off you go. Letting Bruno getting a long way ahead, which doesn't seem to me to be a very sensible idea, since he's going to be released by the safety car.
That'll be so he can, again, so he can kind of pick his moment to shoot by, and it'll also give him the opportunity to catch up with Bruno at the start there, so he'll be able to work his tyres a little bit harder and obviously use that opportunity to try and drop Coronel.
I'm not sure who it is who's buzzing around the circuit in the little red Robinson R44, but they're having a heck of a view of this track. It's a very panoramic facility, isn't it? Dives and turns inside itself all the way down this valley. Of course, it does mean it's tight and twisty for the drivers. Just
you can
to
actually
recap,
see quite a lot of the circuit as well. If you get on the roof of the pit lane, you can see the vast majority of it. Okay, it's not like a perfect view of everything, but you can see rooftops.
Yeah, definitely can. So just to recap, Ivan Muller leads from Tom Coronel in that BMW with the blue bonnet, blue sides. Norbert Mikelic third from Rob Huff and James Thompson. Gabriele Tarquini sixth. Michel Nukia, top Yokohama Trophy driver in seventh, ahead of Pepe Oriola, James Nash, and Tom Chilton rounds out the top 10. Mehdi Banani 12th, and Darrell Young, well, he said, not sure whether we're allowed to rejoin or whatever else. He drove back to the pits under his own steam, no problem at all. He is back out on the racetrack, and he may come in and out, getting adjustments made to that car, Harry.
Yeah.
So it's as good as it can be for race 2, or he might just carry on.
We've got a good shot of the safety car there. You can see the grip the touring car has. The touring cars are creeping around, but that AMG, which is a very fast road car, is absolutely hooning it.
Yeah.
And they're beetling along to try and stay away from it.
Here we go, getting ready to go green. Round 11 of the World Touring Car Championship. Safety car is already in the pit lane. Ivan Muller is backing the queue right up behind him, as is his wish. He wants to leave at exactly the right revs for his engine, and his car, and away he goes through the final corner. Tom Coronel will not be able to overtake, nor will anybody else into turn 1. So that's going to be a very mooted safety car restart as everybody streams across the line in the order in which they streamed across the line from the grid last time round. Now they are free to attack and race. On board with Rob Huff in 4th. Lost that place to Norbert Mikelic's orange and black Honda in the first turn last time round on lap 1. And has got no chance to get by him yet. Michel Nukia looking at the back of the Castrol Honda of Gabriele Tarquini as James Nash runs into Pepe Oriola. The Seat struggling under brakes. And that is right behind the Nukia battle, and Oriola can't get the car turned in. Nash has got the chassis underneath him. He's got Tom Chilton right behind, and Nukia is struggling for grip. He's dropping back fast.
You could just see Oriola there. He lost the back end of the car in the middle of the corner, and that goes down to what we've been saying all weekend about the circuit. It's just pinpoint driving. It's so slippery. You have to get everything absolutely perfect, and you're going slightly too quick, and the back end's going to step out on you.
Sorry, I said Nukia dropping back. I meant Oriola, didn't I? Here's Tom Coronel. He knows that sector 2 is what's going to set him up, and he's got to get in front of Ivan before the long climb back up to the pits and try and get away from him, because the Chevy will accelerate better than the BMW up that hill. Out of this left-hand uphill hairpin, Nash looking to the inside, and that was defence against Chilton, and Chilton sticks his nose in anyway. Right behind is Stefano D'Aste, who will be investigated by the stewards afterwards. They go wide. Chilton lost ground. D'Aste trying to go through. Banani looking up the other side. This is the long straight that should produce the overtaking manoeuvres. Banani versus D'Aste. D'Aste's on the inside. Mikelic defending hard against Huff and Thompson. Oh, and here comes Huffy up the inside. Where does the yellow flag start? At the line? No, further down. And will Huff get through? He will not.
No.
He'll have to tuck back in. And that, unfortunately, is going to put the kibosh pretty much on the whole race. We might get some laps done. It's going to be very hard for the front runners to pass.
It's a prime overtaking place, that as well, so it is going to be very difficult to make a move anywhere else. The rest of the track tends to weave in and out a lot, so it's hard to kind of get alongside someone fair and square.
I get the feeling, as we get down into this tight right-handed 4th turn, that pause may have given Ivan Muller all he needed to be able to stay in control of this race. If they'd been racing hard all the way through with no respite for the tyres, I think Coronel would end up towards the end of the race with a much better chance to get by. Nikolai Karamishev, incidentally, as well as Darrell Young, has rejoined the track. So both those cars looking like they're ready to go in race 2.
That's a very good point, actually. Muller might have just had the respite, but that sector 2 where the BMW is so strong, you can see he's all over the back of Muller here, but sector 3, the Chevrolet pulls 2 to 3 tenths every single lap just on the straight, so we'll see this gap growing and shortening like every single lap.
Nuccia in the black and white car, all over Tarquini in the green, white and red of Italy and indeed of Castrol Honda. Muller, fastest second sector of the race, quicker than anyone else, quicker even than Tom Coronel, his pursuer. Muller is trying to get the hammer down and escape while he's still got a tyre with which to do it. There's Mikhail Kozlowski's engineer. Huff again looks out, but can't get close to the Honda of Nuccia. The Seat has not got enough puff in a straight line to get by the Honda. Needs more of a drag. That long drag up the hill, he can suck himself up to behind Nuccia. Then he needs corner one to be able to pass. But the yellow flags are out there because of the JCB digger, not even a JCB digger, of the digger stuck there in the runoff area.
You can see Rob ducking and diving behind Mitchell and he's obviously just showing him that he's around. He's kind of not trying to distract him, but just making him very aware that he's looking to overtake him, and that will distract Norbert slightly. He'll have to keep an eye on his mirrors all the time, and even though he's probably not actually intending on making a move there, he's just, just showing him that he's around.
Fastest second sector of the race, last lap for Ivan Muller. Fastest third sector for Tom Chilton. The two look-old Chevrolets still with plenty of speed then. Chilton recovering from that moment earlier behind James Nash. And, well, Coronel hanging on to Muller very well, still less than a second behind him. Popping up over this brow, and it's a blind brow over the hill and a tippy-toey turn in. They're doing 180 kilometers an hour, getting on for 185. That's a very quick approach. Second fastest braking area on the circuit. That's a good little battle there with Montero. Yeah, he's just up the inside of Mark Basseng. Through he goes.
Is that going to give McDowell a run as well?
Yep, McDowell's got through as well. There's Basseng behind, looking back from Montero. That's what you need, is somebody to get the boot in and keep the door open for you.
That was a great bit of driving by Alex McDowell there. Bit of opportunistic driving, just saw a little gap open up and managed to take two cars in one move.
Look how close Tom Chilton has got back to James Nash. Freddie Bart's car is now in the pit lane on a flatbed, so has he got a chance of joining in? I don't see Charles Engs, which is a shame.
There's Montero coming back again.
And McDowell behind him on the inside. Attacking and defending, Basseng goes back up one. Good move by Mark Basseng, and Mikhail Kozlowski is right in there as well.
Fantastic little battle this.
Yeah.
4 places swapped in less than a lap.
Rob Huff, fastest last section, towing up the hill behind Norbert Mikulits for the Seat driver. Basseng pushing Montero. See how the different chassis work differently in the corners. The Seat quicker than the Honda there, and the Chevy quicker in other places, and the BMW quicker in still different places.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the beauty of touring car racing. The cars are very, very evenly matched over a lap, but in very, very different places. That's Franz Engsler in the pit lane.
Franz Engsler has come into the pit lane, you're right, for reasons that we're not sure of. He's turned into the garage, maybe to offer some bits to Charles Eng's car is there as well. Charles Eng's car is back, so they can start working on it now until the checkered flag, if there's a chance of getting it running to start from row 2 of the grid, row 1 of the grid, P2 on the grid. Battle for the lead, yeah, Coronel's all over Muller. Has Muller shot his tyres?
Coronel's looking very racy here, isn't he? And we did expect to see the BMW coming on strong in this race, and again, this is that middle sector where it is strong, so let's just see by the time they get back to the start-finish straight. This is where the Chevrolet should pull away down this straight.
Yep. But Tom is hooked right up behind him. Mikulits third in the orange and black. Huff in fourth, right behind him. 0.4 between first and second, and between third and fourth. Thompson holding off Tarquini. And now the race is on to try and get this car ready for race 2's front row start for Charles Eng. Is it even remotely possible? Muller and Coronel. Muller pulling away now. Was 0.4, 0.39 at the line. Rob Huff again, fastest last sector of the lap from anyone in the race. Right up behind Mikulits, whose car looks horrible through that 1 to 2 sequence.
Yeah, you could just see the back end jumping around there, and maybe you can. It is possible as well in front-wheel drive cars to make the rear tyres go off. You know, if you're making the car too loose on the rear, you can get that graining and end up with the back end moving a little bit too much.
6 laps to go, 5 after this. There's the battle. Thompson with Tarquini. Do not hit him, Gabrielli. Do not hit him. Michel Nuccia in 7th place, following the battle for 5th. Thompson in 5th place in the Lada. Last year a Lukoil driver, this year a Castrol Honda driver. Tarquini behind him in 6th position will not be very popular with Mr. Lukoil if he nerves Thompson out of Lada's best result ever in World Touring Cars.
Yeah, definitely not. And not a good place to do it, I wouldn't imagine either.
No. It's going to be tough enough getting to Moscow Airport without having half the Lukoil mafia after you. For Lukoil, Ivan Muller leads the race from Tom Coronel by inches. Coronel still faster in the twisty stuff, but unable to pass in the twisty stuff, and not able to get close enough to overhaul Ivan Muller before they get to the long drag here up towards the pits.
You can see Coronel's really pushing hard. The back end of the car just started to just get away from him in the middle of the corner there. He's just getting more and more eager with the throttle, so let's hope he doesn't get too eager.
The two Chevys of Nash and Chilton there, 9th and 10th. Daste behind. And this is still 5th, 6th and 7th. Muller 0.6 ahead of Coronel. He's made a gap this time. There's more than a car length between them. Then Mikulits is 2.3 back from Coronel. And then Huff right up his exhaust. Then Thompson, Tarquini and Nicchia all together. Well, for the first time, Muller's almost got breathing space, and oh, that's Engsler back out from the pits. There was a little moment of excitement there, as I couldn't figure out who on earth was where.
Yeah, you can see the gap there. Just we saw the shot of Muller and Coronel, and that gap had opened up again. But I'm sure we'll see. Yeah, from this point on, this is exactly where he'll pull back on the back of them. But the yellow flag is kind of. I know Coronel said it's not an easy place for him to overtake anyway, but it does throw a bit of a cat among the pigeons. As in, how much do you back off? Because you can't go at full racing speed, or you're not supposed to. How much do you back off? And does the person in front back off more? Or it does ask a few questions.
Tom Chilton giving James Nash a little love tap from behind, and again Coronel was 6/10 behind at the line. That's more like 600ths behind now as they go through sector 2 on this Moscow Raceway circuit, and really chasing the throttle hard. I mean, really pushing Ivan Muller with everything he's got. He's not going to leave anything on the table. If he doesn't get by, it won't be because he sat and waited.
No, exactly. And he said you don't get any presents off Ivan Muller at the start of the race, and I don't think you get any presents back off Tom Coronel either, to be fair.
No, absolutely. And none would be expected. Looking back from James Nash, 3rd in the championship standings. He's 9th in the race at the moment. Behind Tarquini, who's 2nd in points. Behind Muller, who leads, who is our points leader as well. Muller's teammate Tom Chilton right behind. Ostensibly identical cars. RML running that Chevy Cruze, Bamboo running James Nash's. And you can see there's almost nothing between them anywhere on the track.
Yeah, exactly. They are basically the same. Well, they are the same car, exactly the same car. But obviously RML built and designed the car, and Bamboo are an independent team. But identical cars in all essence. And obviously these guys were two teammates last year as well. They've raced together in the British Championship a lot, so they know each other's driving style, and they kind of trust each other as well, I would imagine.
Or don't, depending.
Yeah, exactly.
Experience leads you in one of two directions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Muller and Coronel, well, again, with Ivan, Tom knows what he's going to get. He knows he's going to get very robust defence. He knows that if he gets in front in the BMW, he can expect to get, ferocious attack. But what he won't expect is wild weaving all over the road. So he knows that if he wins the corner, Ivan is going to have to give it to him, and that's what he's got to do. He's got to.
Chilton's just run a little bit wide there, I think. Yeah. Is it put him in the grasp of Daste?
Well, now is he now starting to lose tyre? 3 laps after this. Coronel now is all over Ivan Muller, and the Chevy can no longer escape.
Watch the oversteer from Coronel.
No, he has to keep it tidy, doesn't he? He's got to get a perfect exit there to get anywhere close. And this is Ivan washing wide a little. No, Tom. See, this is a problem. The BMW carries more speed to the apex, whereas the front-wheel drive cars have got to get slower into the apex and drive it off the corner more.
Yeah, exactly, because you can't. The rear-wheel drive car can rotate itself in the middle of the corner, as we've seen with the rear end moving a little bit. What's happened to Mikulits?
Aldo Prio looking frustrated. Well, Mikulits is being left behind by Muller and Coronel's pace, and Huff now. Oh, if only the yellows weren't there, if only that digger hadn't broken down in the area, in the runoff area there, Huff would have been by Mikulits. And you've got to say, although Thompson's not close enough at the moment, he might have been as well. Although, for Tomo, that digger might be saving him from Tarquini.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. Although it's the Lada's very fast in a straight line, and that end of that sector does tend to be a quick sector, but obviously the Honda's very fast as well.
In fact, Thompson's fastest lap is slightly slower, a couple of hundred slower than Tarquini's, but at the moment he is lapping faster than the Italian in the Honda, as Muller continues to lead from Coronel. Looking here at the #1 car of Rob Huff, lying in 4th position, still trying to find a way by Norbert Mikulits. Mikulitz's Honda, best lap, 2/10 quicker than Huff, but last lap, 2/10 slower than Huff. And Coronel, again, last lap, a 10th quicker than Muller. He can get right up behind him, he can get almost into the boot, but he can't get by, and he just overcooked it there.
Yeah, he locked up a little bit on the way in and ran a little bit deep and just allowed Muller that little opportunity that he needs just to pull a slight little gap.
Well, behind the Nash and Coronel Chilton battle continues for 9th and 10th. They've got Daste behind, Bonani as well, and Bonani, now, you know, he's at the back of that queue. Is he going to take any silly chances, knowing that he's got to start on P1 for race 2?
Yeah,
not a chance.
Exactly. He's going to sit where he is. It's a point-scoring exercise for him here. He wants to make sure he can try and get in a good position for race 2. It's not worth risking damaging the car and, you know, jeopardising with the race 2 for himself.
I just wondered where Tom Coronel had gone there for a moment, and then suddenly, as if arm turned, there was the BMW visible behind him, and Coronel half a second behind at the line, and that mistake in sector 2 dropped him back 2 laps worth of hard work. But now look, that hairpin, 1 hairpin, and suddenly he's right with Muller again.
Yeah, you can see the gap that he pulls just through that middle sector. It's amazing to see.
And Chilton with Daste behind him, the red, white and green on the Italian's car. His own team, PB Racing. You can see damage on the front of his car from a biff with somebody at the start, and unfortunately the stewards are going to have a look at that. He may end up losing whatever he gains here and a bit more if they deem him to have caused that first corner accident. And of course it assumes all sorts of extra proportions for the stewards, because it was a long red flag as well, not through any fault of Daste's necessarily, but because of unrelated problems. Muller still leads from from Coronel, sorry, wrong Tom. Oh, and he's all over him again. That's such a tight and nadgery section of the track, isn't it?
Isn't it? It is. That's a great shot from the back of Ivan Muller's car. You can just see how much that BMW is shifting around, and the back's just wagging around out of the corners, and it looks fantastic.
We've got a bit of a cottager's wobble on out of the final corner up the straight, and that doesn't help him, but he's still close enough to really pile the pressure on Ivan Muller. Goodness me. Tom Coronel, 2 to go. Last lap this time, 1 to go now. No opportunity in turn 1. Can he do something? Huff has dropped away from Mikulits, so it is now Huff. Engstler's a lap out of place in 4th place. Tomo in 5th, ahead of Tarquini and Nukia. Some action might come there in the last lap. Daste has dropped right back off Tom Chilton. I thought he was lunging or setting up for a lunge at Chilton.
I wonder if he's made a little mistake.
Yeah.
This is a great battle here with you've got Leger, Tarquini and Thompson. That's going to go down to the line. Yeah,
I think Tomo is just enough. Actually, it's not that Tomo's holding off Tarquini. It's that Tarquini's got no chance to attack Tomo because he's so busy trying to keep Nukia behind him. Because it's championship points. Coronel is close, but again, no cigar. To go inside at that corner over the brow,
yeah,
you need somebody else to help. They
exactly.
need to go off for you to make that work.
I thought he was going to have a little lunge there, and that would have ended in tears.
Well, any lunge he has is going to end in tears, because Ivan is... If he played cricket, he would play spin bowling like no one else. Line and length. Coronel's driving all over the road, and Ivan is just going apex to apex to apex. Same as he did once he'd set pole position, in fact, in the rain. And with the same result, nobody else can get by him. Yeah. So last lap, last time up the hill, Coronel will finish on the podium, but the championship leader, Ivan Muller, will win again. He set pole again, his 18th pole of his career, and he will now go to win number 4 of the season, win number 34 of his World Touring Car career. 2nd for Coronel, 3rd for Mikulits as RML's Ronnie celebrates, 4th for Huff, and 5th for Thompson at the line ahead of Tarquini, and Nukia like that with 400 4/10 of a second covering that trio, and everybody else, blimey, Chilton ahead of Daste by 1500ths of a second. Aldo Prio, what might have been one sprinkle of rain in Q2, stopped Tom being on pole, stopped Tom leading the race into the first corner, and potentially stopped him winning from Ivan Muller, but you know, it's all ifs, buts and maybes.
Exactly, and it's whether he could have pulled the gap in the middle sector to defend in the final sector against the Chevrolet, or obviously it's much easier to overtake on the straight if you're just doing it on bare grunt. So, but I'm sure, I mean, Tom looked faster there, so I'm guessing if he managed to qualify pole, we don't know how much Ivan was pushing as well. You know, maybe he was.
We do. He was pushing.
Oh, he definitely was, but you know, he may have just been controlling it from the front there.
I think Coronel was far too close for comfort, but I'll give you that, yes. If Tom had been in front, it might have been a different story, but that's on a
weapon, so yeah, I think
they definitely would. For the 34th time in his World Touring Car career, race winner Ivan Muller comes into Parc Fermé. And he comes up to our camera. Jean-Michel gives him the cue. There he is. And he'll be joined by Tom Coronel and Norbert Mikulits. First, second and fourth on the grid. First, second and third in the race. Hoffnau must be ruining that start. We heard him in the red flag saying that they had set, they believed their speed limiter to exactly the maximum speed you're allowed at a rolling start, and everybody else seemed to be going quicker. Now, whether they'll protest and whether the stewards will be able to find or indeed prove that other drivers were exceeding the maximum allowable speed remains to be seen.
It's a good system. Pretty much all the teams will use it, where they'll hold a button on the steering wheel. As the way it works, you come up to the lights are on red, and then when the race organisers deem it appropriate to let you go, they'll release the lights and they go to green. You then release the button on your steering wheel, and that means that you can't accidentally speed up to the green light. And I think it was Marrakesh 2 years ago, pretty much half the grid got thrown out for breaking the speed limit.
Yeah, we had that was the one we had 3 wave bys, wasn't it, at the start of the rolling start as well. So, yeah, hot work for Tom Coronel. And in the end, frustrating. Knows that he had a chance to get pole. He had the car under him. And this might end up being the sort of track that, let's say, Brno always used to be a really happy hunting ground for BMW because of the twists and turns, the dives and the pitches. But you've got to be absolutely the best to beat Ivan Muller. And Tom just didn't quite have the package to match Muller and the Chevrolet. He talks to his fans. Let's hear now from our race winner.
Ivan, congratulations, extending that 49-point advantage you have. How much were you controlling the pace and how much was Tom pushing you?
You know, I knew with this temperature it would be complicated to keep Tom on the back with the BMW because it's a real advantage on this track. So I was very cautious on my tires at the beginning of the race to keep them as fresh as possible for the end. But it was still tough because on the end he was pushing hard. He had a better tire than me, but the important is to win.
And did the car degrade that much, or did you manage to keep the car pretty good to the end of the race?
Yeah, the team did a fantastic job because the balance was more or less very constant all the way through the race, so that's the most important.
Will you be going to change something now?
Yeah, small thing, because when you start in the traffic, it's a bit different, so yeah, small thing.
Thanks very much, Ivan. Congratulations.
Well, for a man who, by his own admission, has rarely had anything like the quickest car on the grid, that's race win number 34. All those years when that turbo diesel Seat was so much slower than the BMWs and the Chevrolets, and yet he ended up winning races and championships, and now he's got a Chevrolet that's not as quick as the BMW that finished behind him. Part of it is racecraft. There we go, that's your result from round 11 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship. The only question mark perhaps over 11th place finisher Stefano Daste. We won't know that until probably later. I should think the stewards will be deciding that as we're sitting in a long queue of traffic. Let's catch up with Michel Nukia, our lead Yokohama Trophy driver.
Michel, congratulations, another independent victory, right in the mix of all the battles. How was it in that position that you were in?
Yeah, it was nice to have a battle with Gabriel and Thompson. But yeah, I have on the last corner out to the straight. I couldn't. I lost some meters, and every time Gabriel get the gap, so I couldn't overtake him down here. But in the rest of the track, I think I was faster than him. So yeah, it was a little bit disappointing to not couldn't catch him. But yeah, I think here in the second race where I start P3, I hope to make a good result.
Is there no opportunities in the mid part of the circuit to overtake?
It's always a little bit dangerous on this track because it's so narrow, and if you try, maybe they close the door, maybe you crash your car and no points. So for me, it's always to get some points and try to see overtake on a clean way. But yeah, I think on the straight here, if you can slipstream and maybe some other places, but yeah, now we will see and take a race.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, he's closed from 8 points behind James Nash, now to 5 points behind James Nash. Starting as the top Yokohama driver on the grid, he got 1 point for that, plus 10 for the win. James Nash, second Yokohama driver, gets 8 points. And Mehdi Banani or Stefano D'Aste will be the third. Banani, if he is third, gets 6 points. 47.53, and that will leave him 13 behind Alex McDowell. What did Alex score? Anyway, changes there. So I've lost McDowell completely. No, in fact, Banani won't close that much. He'll only close a point or two. As repair time starts in 2.5 minutes, getting rid of the damaged recovery vehicles is also going on. Now, how come they couldn't have done that 30 minutes ago? What's up with that then? Cars are on pit road in Parc Fermé. Nobody's allowed to touch them now, Harry, until the 15-minute repair time starts. And at that stage, they can fix what needs fixing, refuel them, retire them, change brakes if they need to, make suspension or differential changes, and then get them out of the pit road ready for race 2. Round 11 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship. First time ever at the Moscow Raceway. Pole to flag victory for Ivan Muller. Lukoil, the local oil conglomerate, taking pole and victory here in Moscow.